This is the Gearswift DCF Poncho. It's the lightest shelter there is if it was just a shelter, but it's also your poncho. So it's your rain gear and it's your shelter together, coming in at 4.8 ounces. This is a full review in detail of this piece of gear. We're going to go over why I chose to bring it on my second through hike of the PCT. We're going to go over specs and features. Then we're going to go over the performance of those specs and features specifically, and we'll go over the performance in Tarp mode, and we'll go over performance in Poncho mode, and then we'll end with who should consider getting this tarp for their setup. So I got it because it's the lightest, coming in at 4.8 ounces. If you think about the fact that an average ultralight rain jacket is around 7 ounces, like the Montbell, or your average ultralight tarp, like the Z-Packs Pocket Tarp, which is 6 ounces, you're coming in at 13 ounces for both of those combined, not even including the stakes and the extras that you need. Whereas with this one, it's just 4.8 ounces. So it's like leagues lighter than any of the other ones. This is one of the reasons why I was able to get my base weight well under 5 pounds, is because of this specific piece of gear. Also, as an ultralighter, there's a bunch of different reasons why people are ultralighters. I'm an ultralighter because I'm a minimalist. I want to have as few things in my bag as I can. When I get to camp, I want to spread everything out, set up my camp, and essentially have nothing left over. And so any piece of gear that acts as 2 different things or 3 different things is a piece of gear that I love. And so because of that, I'm a devotee for the Poncho Tarp combination. There's a lot of people out there that say, okay, the poncho doesn't provide you with warmth, or there's arguments for why the Poncho Tarp doesn't work as well as rain gear. But for me, I think it's the best thing ever, even though I feel like they have strong arguments. It's just, I love the Poncho Tarp. I've been using the Gatewood Cape for my entire Triple Crown. I also got it because on the PCT, I knew it probably wouldn't rain. So this is the shelter to get if you feel like you don't need a shelter. It is a step above the disposable poncho and emergency tarp. It's made out of really strong fabric, so it can last stuffing it over and over again every day into your backpack and just generally carrying it for an entire through hike. And it's probably lighter than those disposable options. Also, I think it's fun to learn new skills while backpacking, and learning how to pitch a flat tarp is one of those skills. So I was excited to figure out how to pitch it in different ways and how to just be proficient at having a piece of fabric that I could turn into my shelter. I just thought it was cool to have just a base piece of fabric and then be able to sort of origami that into different ways for different kinds of shelters. And then the last reason is, when I saw it years ago, and I've wanted to have it for years and I've just bought it, is I was really excited about the hood. I saw that he put a lot more effort into putting multiple bungees on the hood, and I wanted to see how that worked. So moving on to the specs and the features. So it's made out of 0.45 DCF, which is what most tarps are made out of. I got the large, which is 272 centimeters by 165 centimeters, and it's 136 grams. If you look at it from the bottom, there are 8 tie-out points. There are 2 different kinds of tie-out points. So there's the side tie-out point, which has this ribbon and then a really strong rope. There's buttons for both sides that are for the poncho, and then reinforced DCF. And then the front tie-outs have even more reinforced DCF and the same kind of strong ribbon and strong rope. I've pulled on this rope as strong as you can with a trucker's hitch, and it holds really well. These are the tie-out points are reinforced and really strong. It has 2 bungees on either side. These are used in Poncho mode, and I'll talk about it a little later. And then on the bottom, there is the waterproof zipper. And this pull out for the zipper is glow in the dark. I'm not really sure why he made it glow in the dark. I don't know how that helps, but it's very cool. Then along the top, you have the hood. There are two places to tighten it with the bungees. And then there's a side bungee for tightening the hood along the side of your head. And then the entire hood can be rolled and then snapped to be put away. I don't do that because I guess I'm just lazy, or I don't really feel the need to. I just leave the hood out when I'm stuffing it in my bag. So moving on to performance of the specs and the features. The DCF is pretty much the best material that you can have for shelters. The reason why is because it dries almost to a mystical level. It dries immediately within 5 minutes. But one of the problems that it has is that it's bad with abrasion when things rub against it. So you're not going to want to fold and then roll to put this away. You're going to want to just stuff it in your backpack. Just stuffing it in your backpack is much healthier for the material than continually folding it, because along those fold lines is where it's going to rip. Also, you don't want to use this as your ground sheet, because of the continual rubbing on the ground will also eventually rip it. And lastly, you don't want to be smoking around this, because you're going to it's very easily create little pinholes. When looking at the waterproof zipper and using the waterproof zipper, it is clearly a really high quality zipper. I feel like there could have been a more elegant way of closing that hole, but with the waterproof zipper, at least you know that there's no way that water will get through when it's in tarp mode. It's just, I feel like there was probably a lighter way of closing that hole up. The dimensions are, the easiest way to say it is, I just feel like it's not wide enough. It makes it incredibly hard to set up in A-frame mode, which is the mode that you're going to want if you have a full downpour and you want 360-degree protection. Also, when setting it up, you're never ever going to be able to set it up in such a way in A-frame mode so that you can sit up in the tarp. So you always feel like you're in this tiny tube in sort of like a bivvy where there's only 1 or 2 feet above you. Like I said earlier in the specs and features, the tie outs are super strong and you don't need to worry about ever ripping them out. They look sort of chintzy, but they're really, really strong. I've really tugged on these. Also, the buttons hold as well as you would want them to when it's in poncho mode. Okay, so then how does it perform in tarp mode? I have 2 ways of setting it up. The first way is in a pyramid pitch, which is really similar to the Gatewood Cape, which is what I am used to using. I set it up like this for if there's dew, or if there's a light rain in the middle of the day and I just want to wait it out. And then thirdly, if I'm at a campsite where there's a bunch of hikers, or I'm in town and we're all setting up behind a trail angel's house and I want to just denote where my area is, this is actually the probably the most common way that I would use this tarp on the PCT, because it really doesn't rain on the PCT. One of the problems with the pyramid mode, even though it is really quick to set up, is that there's no front door and there's not even a beak. A lot of shelters like the Metaphysics Abode has a beak, which makes it so that there's a little bit more protection when there's no door. This has no door, it's just a drop off. And so if you're going to be setting it up when it's raining, you really want to put the back to the wind and the front to an obstacle so that rain can't be blown into the tarp. And really, if it's more than a light rain, you're not going to want to set it up as a pyramid. The second way that I set it up is the A-frame. And I've been doing this a lot, but it is really hard to set it up in an A-frame. And then once you do, there really isn't a lot of space. and you feel like you're in a little coffin. But if you lower it to the ground on both sides, it really is 360-degree protection. It is long enough so you feel like there's enough space on both sides where the opening is. And I'm 6'1", and I still feel like it's long enough when you get the large. Okay, moving on to the performance as a poncho. I want to start with the fact that the opening for where you put your head through is quite small. This is the same thing that happens with the Gatewood cape, where I need to take off my hat and I need to take off my glasses to put the poncho on. And I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but when it's starting to downpour and you're above tree line and you're trying to get your tarp out and you want to get it on as quickly as possible, and then you also have to take your glasses and your hat off to put it on, you can get turned around. And on the PCT, when I was putting on my Gatewood cape, I actually got turned around and started hiking south on the trail. I'm sorry, the last time I hiked the PCT, I started hiking south on the trail and ran into my family, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And it was that I was just so turned around from trying to get my tarp on that I got disoriented. So the hole being small, I just wish, I understand that the reason why they make the hole small is because they don't want rain getting in there, but I wish there was a clever way that they could design it so that I could put it on while still having my hat and my glasses on. Also, I was really excited about the hood. It looks like he put a lot of time into designing it, but I don't feel like it fits quite right. And but it does keep you dry, and that's really all it needs to do. When you're setting it up, you clip both buttons on both sides, and then you use the bungee and you thread one of the bungees through the ribbon that's underneath the clip, and then you can tighten that bungee and it comes around your waist so that the entire poncho is close to your body and doesn't get snagged on anything. What you'll notice is that it doesn't cover your arms. And this is a really big deal. What this means is that you can't layer warmth under the poncho. So if there's any chance for there to be freezing rain, you don't want to take this shelter, because that's where hypothermia can happen and it can get really dangerous. The nice thing is that he's designed these DCF sleeves that you can get. And if you're not like me, if you don't have this minimalism thing, then the DCF sleeves are no big deal. For me, it just doesn't feel like an elegant solution. And I just don't want to have two more little pieces of gear that are made out of DCF that I only use when it rains. I just don't want to have all these extra things. But what's nice is when you bring it around, it also covers your shorts, so you can get to camp. You don't have to be worried about your shorts being soaking wet. A lot of people ask, you don't bring rain pants. And when you have a poncho, you don't need to bring rain pants, because this poncho at least covers your shorts. The most impressive thing about this poncho is that it doesn't just breathe well, it breathes absolutely. That is, you feel like you don't have any kind of rain gear on. And with a normal rain jacket, it doesn't breathe very well. And so even though it's keeping the rain from hitting you, what can happen is you can soak it out with your own sweat, so you still get wet. And with a poncho like this, you feel like you don't have it on, so you're not going to wet it out due to your sweat. Also, with ponchos and with this poncho, it covers your backpack, which is really nice, because when you get to camp, not only is the stuff inside of your pack dry, but also your pack itself is dry. You just feel like everything is dry. So if it rains in the middle of the day, you can get to camp and it can feel as if it didn't even rain. Next, I just wanted to go over some modifications that I made to the tarp. The big modification is that you want to get some thin climbing rope, and about a thumb's width from each, you want to put a knot. And this allows you to pitch the tarp a bit off of the ground. So I would say get around 12 inches of this climbing rope, thread it through the corner tie out points, and then every 2 inches or so make a knot. That way you can pitch it 6 inches off the ground when it's not going to be raining very hard. You also want to use, I would say minimally, 6 tent stakes, but you can bring 8 tent stakes if you want, so that you can really push the sides in. And you can have shepherd hooks for the sides, but the tie out points on the fronts you want to be groundhogs. So to finish, who should use this shelter? Like I said at the opening, this is the shelter to get when you're hiking a trail where you don't need a shelter. So for me, that's the PCT. I knew from hiking the trail before that there wasn't going to be a lot of rain, and so I could bring pretty much the most minimal shelter that is made in existence, and that is this shelter. Also, if you're trying to break 5 pounds as your base weight, this is a really good place to start, because you can cut off half a pound to 10 ounces by just getting this one piece of gear. So if that's your goal, this is a really good place to start. Also, if you're excited to learn the new skill of flat tarps, this would be a really good shelter to start. It's sort of on the advanced side because it's not really that wide and it's hard to set up as an A-frame. But as you continue to do it, you'll get better at setting it up as an A-frame. So I've used this in a downpour as a poncho and it worked perfectly. It was great. I haven't used it with a downpour as a tarp, because on the PCT it still hasn't downpoured. But the moment that it does, I'm going to make a vlog. So subscribe so you can see me either get completely demolished by a rainstorm, or what it looks like in the inside of this tarp while it rains in the middle of the night. And then my next video is the Torrid jacket. I got the zipper one and I have a lot of really positive things to say about it. And I'll be putting that together over the next couple weeks. So thank you so much for watching.